long before the first Spanish ships touched the shores of the Americas. An extraordinary civilization thrived in the dense jungles and highlands of what we now call Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. These were the Maya, master builders, astronomers, artists, and storytellers. Their cities rose like islands in a sea of green, connected by winding causeways and guarded by towering pyramids. The Maya story begins thousands of years ago, but their classic period, from roughly 250 to 900 AD, marks the height of their achievements. In this era, the Maya built great urban centers like Tikal, Palenque, Calakmul, and cities that were not only political hubs, but also centers of religion, trade, and science. Each city-state was ruled by its own king, known as a Kayula Jau, the Holy Lord. These rulers claimed descent from the gods, and their power rested not only on military strength, but also on their ability to communicate with the spiritual world. Through elaborate rituals, bloodletting ceremonies, carefully timed festivals, they maintained the balance between the human and divine realms. The Maya were gifted architects and engineers, using stone tools and human labor, for they had no beasts of burden like horses or oxen. They raised massive structures that still stand today. Step pyramids climbed toward the heavens. Palaces sprawled across city plazas. Ball courts hosted ritual games that were as much about religion as they were about sport. Perhaps their most astonishing achievement was in astronomy and mathematics. The Maya developed one of the most accurate calendars in the ancient world, able to predict solar and lunar eclipses centuries in advance. They understood the concept of zero long before many other civilizations. And they used a sophisticated writing system, a mix of logograms and syllabic signs, to record history, poetry, and prophecy. Their cities were linked by networks of trade: obsidian from the highlands, jade from river valleys, cacao beans for making chocolate, and bright feathers of the quetzal bird moved from region to region. These goods carried not just material value, but spiritual significance. The Maya lived in harmony with their environment, but they also reshaped it. They built reservoirs to capture rainwater, carved terraces into hillsides for farming, and cleared patches of jungle for crops like maize, beans, and squash. The three sisters of Mesoamerican agriculture. Maize, especially, was central to their culture. In their mythology, humans were fashioned from corn by the gods. Yet the Maya world was not a single unified empire. It was a mosaic of competing kingdoms, bound by trade and shared culture, but often locked in rivalry and war. Alliances rose and fell. Victories brought captives for sacrifice, while defeats could mean the loss of territory and prestige. As the classic period unfolded, Maya civilization reached a breathtaking zenith. Art flourished, from intricate jade masks to vivid murals depicting gods and kings. Knowledge deepened in astronomy, medicine, and history. Their cities seemed eternal, their culture unshakable. But history teaches us that even the mightiest civilizations can face decline. In the centuries to come, the Maya would confront challenges both within and beyond their control: environmental stress, political upheaval, and shifting trade networks. These forces, slowly and almost imperceptibly, would set the stage for a mystery that still puzzles us today: why this magnificent civilization disappeared from its great cities. In the next part, we will journey deeper into the golden age of the Maya, exploring the height of their cultural and political power, before the first signs of trouble began to appear. The Maya classic period, often called their golden age, was a time when cities rose to their greatest heights, both in architecture and in influence. Between 600 and 800 AD, the Maya world pulsed with activity. Rulers competed for prestige, not only through war, but through the grandeur of their cities and the complexity of their rituals. In Tikal, towering pyramids pierced the jungle canopy, their limestone faces catching the morning sun. At Palenque, intricate stucco carvings adorned palace walls, telling stories of kings, queens, and gods. It became a hub of artistic excellence, producing stone monuments, stele, carved with detailed hieroglyphs chronicling dynasties and celestial events. These cities were more than political capitals. They were the heartbeats of culture, science, and spirituality. The kings of this era were ambitious visionaries. They sought alliances through marriage, solidified power with grand public works, and legitimized their rule through elaborate ceremonies. Bloodletting rituals in which rulers drew their own blood as an offering to the gods were public displays of devotion and sacrifice. These acts were believed to open a pathway between the mortal and divine worlds, ensuring cosmic balance and prosperity for their people. The Maya elite invested heavily in knowledge. Astronomers observed the movement of planets and stars from observatories, recording patterns that would guide agriculture, religion, and politics. Priests consulted the long count calendar to select auspicious days for wars, coronations, and festivals. Scribes, trained for years, painted codices, folding books made of bark paper, with vibrant scenes and precise glyphs, preserving myths, histories, and astronomical data. Trade expanded beyond local networks. Maya merchants traveled hundreds of miles, carrying cacao beans, obsidian blades, jade ornaments, salt, honey, and textiles. These exchanges connected the Maya not only to neighboring Mesoamerican cultures like the Zapotecs and Teotihuacanos, but to distant peoples whose goods and ideas enriched Maya society. At the heart of daily life was maize. It was both sustenance and sacred gift. The Maya believed their ancestors had been formed from maize dough by the gods, and every harvest was a reaffirmation of this divine connection. Festivals marked planting and reaping, with dances, feasts, and offerings to ensure the cycle's continuation. Despite the grandeur of their cities, the Maya landscape was dotted with smaller towns and villages. Farmers, artisans, and laborers formed the backbone of society. While the elite planned wars and festivals, these common people worked the fields, crafted goods, and built the monumental architecture that symbolized Maya greatness. Art reached new heights. Murals in Bonampak depicted vivid scenes of courtly life and battle. Jade masks and ornaments shimmered in ceremonial regalia. Pottery, painted with delicate scenes, carried images of gods, rituals, and daily activities. Even utilitarian objects were often works of beauty, reflecting a culture where art and life were intertwined. The Golden Age, however, was not without shadows. Rivalries between city-states sometimes erupted into prolonged conflicts. Resources, especially in densely populated areas, were under constant demand. Forests were cleared for agriculture and fuel, subtly altering the environment. These pressures, though not yet catastrophic, hinted at challenges to come. For now, though, the Maya world shone brightly. From the highland temples to the lowland plazas, from the starlit observatories to the bustling marketplaces, the civilization seemed poised for endless prosperity. Yet history moves in cycles, and the seeds of change had already been planted. In the next part, we will explore the politics and rivalries that shaped Maya history, the alliances and betrayals that could elevate a city to glory or plunge it into ruin. In the lush and intricate world of the Maya, political power was not centralized under a single ruler. Instead, the region was a patchwork of independent city-states, each ruled by its own king or queen. These kingdoms shared a common culture and belief system, but their relationships with one another were far from simple. Alliances were often forged through marriage diplomacy. A royal daughter from one city-state might be sent to marry the ruler of another, cementing ties that could last for decades. These unions were more than personal. They were political tools meant to secure peace, encourage trade, or combine military strength. A single royal wedding could shift the balance of power across hundreds of miles. Yet alliances were fragile. The same city that was a trusted partner one decade could become a bitter rival the next. Ambition, pride, and the desire for dominance often led to wars between city-states. These conflicts were not merely about territory. They were also about prestige. Capturing a rival ruler or high-ranking noble was a political triumph, celebrated with elaborate rituals and recorded in stone for future generations to remember. The rivalry between Tikal and Calakmul is perhaps the most famous. For centuries, these two great powers vied for supremacy over the Maya lowlands. Each gathered networks of allies, drawing smaller kingdoms into their orbit. Battles between their forces could involve thousands of warriors, and the outcomes often reshaped the political map. Maya warfare was not the same as the total wars of later history. While it could be brutal, it was also ritualized. Victories brought captives who might be sacrificed to the gods, a grim but deeply symbolic act that reaffirmed cosmic order. Warfare was as much about sending a message as it was about seizing land. These rivalries also spurred cultural competition. Rulers sought to outdo one another in the grandeur of their cities. A king might commission a taller pyramid, a more elaborate palace, or a stela with more intricate carvings than his rivals. Monument building was both a statement of wealth and a tool of propaganda. Trade alliances were equally important. A city with strong trading partners could grow wealthy and powerful, using that wealth to attract artisans, scholars, and soldiers. Control over key trade routes, whether for jade, obsidian, or cacao, could elevate a city's influence across the region. But constant rivalry carried risks. Prolonged conflicts drained resources, weakened defenses, and made cities vulnerable to outside threats. When droughts, famine, or disease struck, divided kingdoms found it harder to respond. The political landscape, vibrant and dynamic, was also unstable. As the centuries passed, the political games of alliance and betrayal became a double-edged sword. They enriched the Maya world with art, architecture, and cultural exchange. But they also sowed seeds of fragmentation that would be felt in the civilization's later struggles. In the next part, we will step away from the courts and battlefields to explore the daily life of the Maya people, from the humblest farmer to the most exalted noble, and see how ordinary lives fit into the grand tapestry of Maya civilization. While the great pyramids and palaces of the Maya capture our imagination, the heart of the civilization lay in the daily lives of its people. Beyond the royal courts and ceremonial plazas, the Maya world was filled with farmers, artisans, traders, and families whose work and traditions sustained the kingdoms. Most Maya lived in small villages near the great cities, often surrounded by fields of maize, beans, and squash, the three sisters of Mesoamerican agriculture. These crops were not only food, but also cultural symbols woven into the stories and rituals that connected the people to the gods. Farming was hard work, done with stone tools and human labor. Men cleared fields, planted, and harvested, while women prepared food, weaving it into the rhythms of everyday life. A typical home was a wattle-and daub structure, walls made from wooden poles covered in clay, with a thatched roof of palm leaves. Inside, a hearth served as the center of the household, where food was cooked and family gathered. Hammocks hung in corners, offering places to sleep. Artisans played a vital role in Maya society. Potters shaped clay into jars, bowls, and painted vessels. Weavers produced cloth from cotton, dyed in vibrant colors using plant and insect pigments. Stone carvers created intricate sculptures and stelae, recording history in enduring form. Many artisans worked for the nobility, but their goods also circulated through markets, connecting distant communities. Markets were lively places. Traders displayed cacao beans, obsidian blades, salt, honey, dried fish, and woven mats. Here, people exchanged not only goods, but news, stories, and songs. The market was a meeting place for cultures, a hub where the economic, social, and even spiritual worlds intertwined. Children learned by watching and helping their parents. Boys were taught to hunt, farm, or craft, while girls learned to weave, cook, and manage a household. Education for the elite was more formal, often involving scribes and priests who trained young nobles in writing, mathematics, and astronomy. Religion was present in every part of life. Small household shrines honored local gods and ancestors. Offerings of food, flowers, or incense were common, ensuring harmony between the human and spiritual realms. The great temples of the cities were not distant symbols. They were extensions of the same beliefs practiced at home. Festivals punctuated the year with music, dance, and ritual. These events tied communities together, blending the sacred and the social. They marked planting and harvest, honored the gods, and celebrated victories or alliances. Even the humblest farmer participated in these collective moments, standing alongside nobles in a shared expression of identity. Daily life in the Maya world was a balance between work, community, and spirituality. While the rulers wove their grand strategies, it was the ordinary people, through their labor, creativity, and devotion, who sustained the civilization's heart. In the next part, we will step into the spiritual and religious world of the Maya, exploring their gods, myths, and the rituals that connected them to the cosmos. For the Maya, the universe was alive with divine presence. Every tree, every river, every star in the night sky carried spiritual meaning. Their worldview was a complex blend of gods, ancestors, nature spirits, and cosmic forces, all woven together into an intricate system of belief. At the center of this spiritual world was the Maya pantheon, a vast collection of deities, each with distinct powers and domains. Some ruled over the sun, rain, and maize. Others governed death, the underworld, or the cycles of time. Gods could be benevolent or wrathful, and they often had dual aspects, representing both creation and destruction. One of the most revered figures was Itzamna, the creator god associated with the heavens, writing, and knowledge. Chak, the rain god, was essential for agricultural success, bringing life to crops in the tropical climate. The maize god, youthful and beautiful, symbolized renewal and abundance. His life cycle mirroring the planting, growth, and harvest of corn. The Maya believed that the world was divided into three realms: the underworld, Shibaba, the earthly realm, and the heavens. A great cosmic tree, the Siva, connected these layers. Its roots reached deep into the underworld. Its trunk stood in the human world, and its branches touched the heavens. Shamans and rulers, through ritual, could symbolically climb this tree, traveling between realms to seek guidance or favor from the gods. Rituals were central to Maya's spiritual life. They ranged from simple household offerings to elaborate state ceremonies involving music, dance, incense, and bloodletting. Blood, considered a sacred essence, was the most precious offering a human could give. By shedding their own blood, rulers and nobles renewed the bonds between people and the divine. Sacrifice, while sometimes involving animals or food, could also include humans, especially war captives. These acts were not seen as cruelty, but as necessary exchanges to maintain cosmic balance. In their belief, life and death were part of the same eternal cycle. Astronomy was deeply intertwined with religion. Temples and pyramids were aligned with celestial events, solstices, equinoxes, and planetary movements. Observatories allowed priests to track the stars and predict the seasons, ensuring that rituals and agricultural activities occurred at the proper time. Mythology preserved their cosmic understanding. The Popol Vuh, a sacred text of the Q'eshm Maya, tells the story of creation, heroic twins, and the trials of the underworld. These stories were more than entertainment. They were moral lessons, cosmological explanations, and spiritual guides. Religion shaped every aspect of Maya life, from politics to agriculture, from architecture to art. Rulers were not just political leaders. They were divine intermediaries, responsible for maintaining harmony between the mortal and spiritual realms. A failure in this duty, whether through defeat in war, natural disaster, or famine, could be seen as a sign of divine displeasure. In the next part, we will explore Maya science and achievements, uncovering how their advanced knowledge in astronomy, mathematics, and engineering helped shape their world. The Maya were not only builders of cities and performers of rituals, They were also brilliant scientists, mathematicians, and engineers. Their intellectual achievements remain some of the most impressive in the ancient world, rivaling those of civilizations separated from them by oceans and continents. One of their most remarkable accomplishments was their understanding of mathematics. Long before many other cultures, the Maya developed the concept of zero, a symbol that allowed them to perform complex calculations and keep precise records of time. Their number system, based on a vigesimal base 20 structure, used dots for ones, bars for fives, and a shell symbol for zero. This simplicity masked extraordinary power, enabling them to calculate vast spans of time with ease. This mathematical skill was closely tied to their astronomy. Maya astronomers tracked the movements of the sun, moon, and planets with astonishing accuracy. They could predict solar and lunar eclipses centuries in advance, a feat that gave their rulers both prestige and authority. These celestial observations were not purely scientific. They were deeply embedded in religion, guiding rituals, festivals, and even political decisions. The Maya developed several calendars, each serving a different purpose. The Tzolk'in, a 260-day ritual calendar, was used for religious ceremonies and divination. The Hab, a 365-day solar calendar, kept track of agricultural and seasonal cycles. Together, these formed a larger system called the calendar round, which repeated every 52 years. For longer spans of history, they used the long count, a system capable of tracking thousands of years into the past or future. Engineering was another area of excellence. Without metal tools, draft animals, or wheeled transport, the Maya still managed to build monumental architecture. They constructed step pyramids, palaces, ball courts, and observatories using precisely cut limestone blocks. Many of their buildings were aligned with astronomical events, a fusion of science, religion, and artistry. Water management was essential in the often unpredictable climate of Mesoamerica. The Maya engineered reservoirs, canals, and cisterns to collect and store rainwater. In areas without rivers or lakes, these systems were vital for survival. In some cities, complex drainage networks prevented flooding during the rainy season. Agricultural innovation was equally advanced. The Maya practiced terracing to farm on slopes, built raised fields in swampy areas, rotated crops to maintain soil fertility. These methods allowed them to support dense populations, even in challenging environments. Medicine and healing practices combined observation with spirituality. Maya healers used a wide range of plants for medicinal purposes, from pain relief to digestive health. They understood the properties of herbs like cacao, chili, and copo resin, applying them in both practical treatments and sacred rituals. Art, too, reflected scientific precision. Murals and carvings often depicted astronomical events with exact detail. Pottery scenes sometimes illustrated mythological stories tied to real celestial alignments, showing a deep integration of knowledge and creativity. What is striking is how seamlessly the Maya blended science and spirituality. For them, measuring the stars was not separate from honoring the gods. Calculating the passage of time was not just a practical tool, it was a way of participating in the cosmic order. In the next part, we will turn to the great cities of the Maya, exploring the urban wonders that became centers of culture, politics, and innovation. Scattered across the lowland jungles, highland valleys, and coastal plains of Mesoamerica, the great cities of the Maya rose like islands of stone amid a sea of green. Each was a unique masterpiece of architecture, culture, and political ambition. Yet all shared the signature style of this remarkable civilization. Perhaps the most famous is Tikal, in present-day Guatemala. At its height, Tikal was one of the most powerful city-states in the Maya world, home to tens of thousands of people. Its towering pyramids, especially Temple I and Temple II, still dominate the skyline. Their limestone faces once painted in vibrant colors. From the top, priests could observe the heavens, kings could address the people, and the jungle stretched endlessly to the horizon. To the north lay Calakmul, deep within the forests of modern Mexico. A formidable rival to Tikal, Calakmul was a political powerhouse, controlling an extensive network of allied cities. Its pyramids are among the largest ever built by the Maya, rising above the canopy like ancient sentinels. Here, rulers commissioned stele inscribed with histories, victories, and divine legitimacy. In the west, Palenque stood apart for its artistic elegance. Its palace complex, with finely carved stucco panels, celebrated the reign of King Pakal the Great, Palenquis. Temple of the Inscriptions holds one of the most significant tombs ever discovered in the Maya world, revealing treasures and knowledge about royal burial practices. Farther south, in present-day Honduras became a center of sculpture and learning. Its stele and altars are so detailed that they read like stone books, recording events and lineage with remarkable precision. The city's ball court, one of the most impressive in the Maya region, was both a sporting arena and a stage for sacred ritual. Uzmail, in the Puc Hills of the peninsula, boasted a distinctive architectural style. The Pyramid of the Magician, with its unusual oval base, and the governor's palace, aligned with Venus, reflect the city's mastery of both design and astronomy. Each of these cities was more than stone and mortar. They were living communities with bustling markets, residential districts, gardens, workshops, and temples. Surrounding them were networks of roads, or sakbib, linking them to smaller towns and villages, facilitating trade, communication, and political control. The cities served as centers of religion and governance. Royal courts directed political affairs. Priests conducted ceremonies to ensure cosmic balance, and artisans filled the plazas with art that celebrated both divine power and human achievement. Yet these grand urban centers also faced challenges. Maintaining such dense populations required careful management of resources, especially food and water. Rivalries between cities could lead to warfare, disrupting trade and straining alliances. Even in their prime, the seeds of future difficulties were quietly taking root. Still, during their peak, the great cities of the Maya stood as symbols of human ingenuity, creativity, and resilience. They remain today, silent under the jungle canopy, whispering the stories of kings and commoners, of glory and decline. In the next part, we will shift our gaze to Maya, trade, and economy, exploring how goods, ideas, and wealth flowed through this interconnected world. The Maya world was not an isolated collection of kingdoms. It was a vibrant network of trade and exchange that stretched across hundreds of miles, linking cities, villages, and distant cultures. Trade was the lifeblood of the Maya economy, shaping political alliances, enriching cities, and spreading ideas along with goods. In the bustling marketplaces of major cities, traders laid out their wares on woven mats. Baskets of cacao beans, gleaming obsidian blades, polished jade ornaments, woven cotton cloth, and intricately painted ceramics. Each item told a story of its journey, some from nearby farms or workshops, others from far-off lands beyond the Maya heartland. Cacao beans were not only consumed as a rich, bitter drink by the elite, they also served as currency. A handful of cacao could buy food, tools, or services, making them a practical and portable form of wealth. Obsidian, sharp as glass and prized for tools and weapons, came from volcanic regions far from many Maya cities, requiring long-distance trade routes to bring it to artisans and warriors. The most coveted gemstone was jade. To the Maya, jade was more than beautiful. It symbolized life, fertility, and power. It adorned the clothing of nobles, decorated ceremonial masks, and was buried with the dead to accompany them into the afterlife. Its rarity made it a sign of prestige, and control over jade trade routes was a source of political power. Salt, though common in modern life, was a precious commodity in the ancient world. Coastal communities evaporated seawater in clay pans, producing salt cakes that were carried inland along trade paths. Without salt, food preservation was difficult, making it an essential part of the Maya economy. The Maya also traded exotic goods such as tropical bird feathers, shells, honey, and even slaves. Some items, like the bright feathers of the quetzal bird, were reserved for royalty and high priests, symbolizing divine authority. Trade was not limited to physical goods. Alongside materials came knowledge and culture. Traders carried stories, religious ideas, and technological innovations between cities. The exchange of information was as valuable as the exchange of goods. Strengthening cultural unity across a fragmented political landscape. Transportation relied on human effort. Without wheeled vehicles or draft animals, goods were carried by porters or loaded into dugout canoes for river and coastal travel. The sakbib, the elevated white roads, connected cities and towns, allowing goods to move quickly over land. Markets also served as social hubs. People gathered to negotiate deals, hear news, and forge personal and political relationships. Festivals often coincided with market days, blending commerce with celebration, music, and ritual. The wealth generated by trade allowed cities to commission grand monuments, sponsor festivals, and support specialized artisans. It also fueled rivalries, as control over lucrative trade routes could shift the balance of power between competing kingdoms. In the next part, we will look deeper into one of the most fascinating aspects of Maya life, the ball game. A sport that was both entertainment and sacred ritual, played in cities across the Maya world. Among the many cultural traditions of the Maya, few were as captivating or as deeply symbolic as the ball game. Known today as poke-to-poke, or by similar names in different Maya regions, this was far more than a sport. It was a spectacle, a political event, and a sacred ritual woven into the spiritual fabric of Maya life. The game was played in large stone courts, often built at the heart of major cities. These courts were long, narrow alleys with high walls on either side, sometimes decorated with intricate carvings depicting players, gods, and mythological scenes. The walls often featured stone rings or markers through which the ball could be passed, a rare and challenging feat. The ball itself was made of solid rubber, heavy and resilient. Players struck it with their hips, thighs, or forearms, but never their hands or feet. This required remarkable skill, agility, and endurance. Teams, often representing rival cities or political factions, competed in matches that could last for hours under the hot sun. To the Maya, the ball game was not just physical competition. It was a symbolic reenactment of cosmic events. In the sacred text, Popol Vuh, the hero twins, Hunahpu and Zabalanque, played a ball game against the lords of the underworld, ultimately defeating them and restoring balance to the world. Every match was a living reminder of this myth, a contest between light and darkness, life and death. Matches could carry high political stakes. Victories were celebrated with feasts and public ceremonies, while defeats could bring shame or loss of prestige. In some cases, the game served as a proxy for warfare, a way to resolve disputes without open battle. But unlike modern sports, the consequences could be deadly. Ritual sacrifice, often of captives or even players, sometimes followed the game, offered to the gods as part of the ceremony. The ball game also reinforced social hierarchy. Seats closest to the court were reserved for nobles, priests, and honored guests, while common citizens watched from the periphery. The presence of rulers at the matches underscored their role as mediators between the mortal world and the divine. Architecturally, the courts were designed with acoustics in mind. The sound of the heavy rubber balls striking the walls or the players' padded hips could echo dramatically, adding to the atmosphere. Music, chanting, and the scent of burning copal resin often accompanied the matches, making them as much a spiritual performance as a sporting event. Even in daily life, the ball game left its mark. Small clay figurines of players, miniature rubber balls, and decorative motifs appeared in homes and markets. It was a cultural touchstone, understood by everyone from the humblest farmer to the most powerful king. The ball game's endurance across centuries shows its deep importance. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, They were astonished to find it still played, its rules and meaning preserved despite the passing of generations. In the next part, we will explore Maya art and writing, delving into the ways this civilization recorded its history, honored its gods, and expressed its creativity through stone, paint, and glyphs. The Maya world spoke in two powerful languages, the language of art and the language of writing. Through them, the people recorded history, celebrated the divine, and left behind a legacy that still whispers from the stones and painted walls of their cities. Maya art was both beautiful and purposeful. It adorned temples, palaces, pottery, and even everyday tools. Carvings in limestone told the stories of kings, battles, and sacred rituals. These were not random decorations. Each image was rich with meaning, a carefully arranged combination of symbols that conveyed political power, religious devotion, or cosmic harmony. Murals brought color to the Maya world. On the walls of places like Bonampak, scenes came alive with warriors marching into battle, nobles in elaborate headdresses, and musicians playing during festivals. The vivid reds, blues, and greens were made from natural pigments, carefully prepared to last centuries in the humid climate. Pottery, too, was a canvas. Painted vases and plates often depicted mythological scenes, celestial events, or courtly life. These ceramics traveled far through trade, spreading artistic styles and stories from one city to another. But perhaps the most remarkable achievement was the Maya script, a complex system of hieroglyphs combining logograms, symbols representing words, and syllabic signs. This writing system could capture anything from royal decrees to poetry, from astronomical calculations to historical chronicles. Scribes held a prestigious position in Maya society. They were not only literate, but also trained in art, for writing was as much a visual craft as it was a record of speech. Each glyph was drawn with precision, often accompanied by detailed illustrations that enhanced the message. The Maya wrote on stone monuments, codices made from bark paper, and portable objects like jade plaques or bone carvings. Stele, tall stone slabs stood in city plazas, recording important dates, victories, and dynastic successions. The inscriptions were often paired with images of rulers in ceremonial dress, reinforcing their divine authority. Much of this knowledge was tragically lost after the Spanish conquest, when countless codices were burned. Only a few survived, such as the Dresden Codex, which contains astronomical tables and ritual schedules. These rare texts are invaluable windows into Maya thought, showing the integration of science, religion, and governance. Even so, the surviving art and inscriptions speak volumes. They tell us that the Maya saw no sharp divide between the practical and the sacred. A calendar date carved into stone was both a historical record and a moment in cosmic time. A painted image of a king was both a portrait and a declaration of divine favor. Art and writing gave the Maya a way to project their identity across time, ensuring that their stories would outlast the cities themselves. In the next part, we will explore the role of agriculture and food in sustaining Maya civilization, and how the land both nourished and challenged their way of life. For the Maya, the earth was both a provider and a partner. Agriculture was at the heart of their civilization, shaping settlement patterns, influencing politics, and sustaining the daily lives of millions. Without the bounty of the land, the great cities, grand ceremonies, and intricate art of the Maya would not have been possible. The foundation of Maya agriculture rested on the three sisters: maize, beans, and squash. Maize, or corn, was more than a staple food. It was a sacred gift from the gods, central to myths of creation. In the Popal Va, the first humans were formed from maize dough, linking the crop directly to the origin of life. Beans provided essential protein, while squash offered vitamins and acted as ground cover, protecting the soil. Farming methods varied depending on geography. In the fertile lowlands, farmers used milpa agriculture, a form of slash-and-burn farming. They cleared a patch of forest, planted crops for a few years, and then let the land lie fallow to recover. In hillier regions, they built terraces, preventing soil erosion and making the slopes productive. In swampy areas, they constructed raised fields, lifting their crops above waterlogged ground. Tools were simple, yet effective: stone axes, wooden digging sticks, and obsidian blades. Without beasts of burden or plows, all work was done by hand. Men and women shared the labor. Men often prepared the fields and planted, while women processed maize into tortillas, tamales, and atole, a warm, maize-based drink. Water management was a constant challenge, especially in the dry season. The Maya engineered reservoirs, canals, and cisterns to store and distribute water. In some regions, underground limestone caves, cenotes, provided fresh water and were considered sacred gateways to the underworld. The Maya diet extended beyond the Three Sisters. They cultivated chili peppers, tomatoes, avocados, sweet potatoes, and cacao. Cacao, made into a frothy, bitter drink, was a luxury for the elite and used as currency in trade. Hunting and fishing supplemented their diet with deer, turkey, iguana, fish, and shellfish. Food was deeply tied to ritual. Planting and harvest seasons were marked by ceremonies to honor the gods, especially the maize god. Offerings of food, incense, and flowers were made to ensure good weather and abundant crops. Feasts during festivals brought communities together, blending the sacred with the social. Agriculture not only fed the population, but also supported social and political stability. Surpluses allowed cities to support artisans, priests, and rulers, creating a complex division of labor. However, the same reliance on agriculture made the Maya vulnerable to climate changes. Prolonged droughts, crop failures, or soil exhaustion could lead to famine, weakening entire kingdoms. The land was generous, but it demanded respect and careful management. When the balance between people and nature was disrupted, the consequences could ripple through the entire civilization. In the next part, we will explore Maya warfare and politics, and how conflict shaped alliances, rivalries, and ultimately the fate of their cities. The Maya world was a tapestry of city-states, each with its own ruler, court, and ambitions. While united by shared culture, language, families, and religion, these kingdoms were also fierce rivals. Warfare and politics were as much a part of Maya life as farming and festivals, shaping the rise and fall of cities across centuries. Maya warfare was not waged for total destruction. Instead, it often aimed to capture territory, secure trade routes, take prisoners for sacrifice, or demonstrate political dominance. Battles were carefully planned, with leaders seeking the most strategic advantage before engaging. Armies were composed of warriors from all levels of society. Nobles fought alongside commoners, though the highest-ranking warriors wore elaborate costumes, jaguar pelts, feathered headdresses, and painted faces that declared their status and inspired fear in their enemies. Weapons included spears, obsidian-tipped darts, stone axes, and the fearsome makua weedle, a wooden sword lined with razor-sharp obsidian blades. The taking of prisoners was central to Maya warfare. Captured nobles could be used for ransom, marriage alliances, or ritual sacrifice. Depictions on stelae murals often show bound captives kneeling before victorious kings, reinforcing the ruler's power and divine favor. Politics in the Maya world revolved around a web of alliances and rivalries. Marriage between royal families could cement peace, while betrayals could spark decades-long feuds. Cities like Tikal and Kalakmail became superpowers, each controlling vast networks of allied states. Smaller cities often had to choose sides, aligning with whichever power promised protection or advantage. Diplomacy and warfare were intertwined. Envoys carried gifts, negotiated treaties, and sometimes delivered ultimatums, the exchange of prestige goods. Jade obsidian, textiles, could symbolize goodwill or submission. Yet beneath these gestures, the threat of military action was never far away. Victory in battle was celebrated with public ceremonies. The ruler, often depicted holding a captive by the hair, would perform rituals to present the prisoner to the gods. These displays were not only religious acts, but also powerful political statements, reinforcing the ruler's role as protector and intermediary between the people and the divine. However, constant warfare came at a cost. Maintaining armies drained resources, disrupted agriculture, and strained alliances. In times of drought or famine, the burden on the population could become unbearable. Political instability weakened cities, leaving them vulnerable to rivals or internal revolt. As the Classic period progressed, warfare became more intense and widespread. Some historians believe that escalating conflicts contributed significantly to the eventual decline of many Maya cities. The balance between cooperation and competition tipped toward destructive rivalry, eroding the stability that had allowed the civilization to flourish. In the next part, we will explore Maya beliefs about death and the afterlife, uncovering how their view of mortality shaped rituals, art, and daily life. For the Maya, death was not the end. It was a passage, a crossing into a vast and mysterious realm where the soul's journey continued. Their beliefs about the afterlife were deeply tied to religion, mythology, and the cycles of nature, shaping the way they lived, celebrated, and mourned. In Maya cosmology, the universe was layered. Above lay the heavens, divided into multiple levels inhabited by gods, celestial beings, and ancestors. Below stretched Xibalba, the underworld, a place of trials, darkness, and transformation. Between these realms lay the earthly world, where humans carried out their lives in constant connection to the spiritual forces above and below. Death was seen as a transition to this other world. The destination of the soul depended not only on one's deeds in life, but also on the manner of death. Warriors who died in battle, women who died in childbirth, and those sacrificed to the gods were believed to ascend quickly to the heavens, honored for their service. Others embarked on a long and perilous journey through Xibalba. The Popol Vuh describes the hero twins descending into the underworld, facing trials set by its lords. This myth mirrored the challenges a soul might face after death, tests of courage, wisdom, and purity. Rituals, prayers, and offerings by the living were meant to aid the soul in navigating this journey. Funerary practices varied by status. Common people might be buried beneath their homes, connecting them eternally to their family and land. Nobles and rulers received elaborate tombs, often within temples or pyramids. These burials included jade beads, carved bone, pottery, and food. Provisions for the journey ahead. Jade beads placed in the mouth symbolized breath and life, ensuring the soul's vitality in the afterlife. Painted murals sometimes depicted the deceased in the presence of gods, reinforcing the belief that the dead entered a divine realm. Cemeteries, tombs, and ceremonial platforms were more than places of mourning. They were sacred spaces for communication with the ancestors. During festivals, families brought offerings of food, incense, and flowers to honor their dead, believing the spirits could bring blessings, guidance, or protection. The Maya did not fear death as annihilation. They saw it as part of the eternal cycle. Just as maize seeds must be buried to grow again, so too must the human spirit pass through darkness before renewal. This view gave meaning to rituals of sacrifice, warfare, and agricultural ceremony, binding all aspects of life to the cosmic rhythm. In the next part, we will turn to a sobering chapter: the environmental challenges and climate shifts that strained the Maya's ability to sustain their cities and way of life. The Maya flourished in a land of contrasts: lush jungles, fertile plains, dry scrublands, and rugged highlands. For centuries, they adapted brilliantly to their varied environment. Yet, the same land that sustained them also held the seeds of great difficulty. Environmental challenges combined with shifts in climate would test the resilience of their civilization. One of the most persistent threats was water management. In many lowland regions, rivers were scarce, and seasonal rains dictated the rhythm of life. The Maya developed sophisticated reservoirs, canals, and cisterns to capture and store water, But prolonged dry periods could still bring hardship. Evidence from lake sediments, cave stalagmites, and climate records suggests that between the 8th and 10th centuries, the Maya region experienced severe droughts. These were not brief interruptions, but prolonged events that could last years, drastically reducing crop yields and straining food supplies. In an agricultural society so dependent on seasonal rains, drought meant more than thirst. It meant famine, political instability, and even warfare over dwindling resources. City-states that once traded goods began competing fiercely for control of water sources and fertile land. Deforestation added to the problem. As populations grew, vast areas were cleared for farming and for the limestone burning process used in construction. Removing the forest canopy altered local rainfall patterns and reduced the soil's ability to hold moisture, making drought impacts even worse. Soil exhaustion was another issue. Continuous farming on the same land depleted nutrients, reducing productivity. While the Maya used techniques like crop rotation and fallowing, population pressures often forced them to push the land beyond its natural limits. In coastal areas, storms and hurricanes could devastate crops and settlements. Inland, occasional flooding damaged fields and infrastructure. Nature's extremes, whether too much water or too little, could swiftly undo years of stability. The environmental stress did not exist in isolation. It intersected with political rivalries, economic challenges, and social unrest. A failed harvest could weaken a city's ability to support its army or pay tribute to allies. Drought could undermine faith in rulers and priests, whose duty was to maintain cosmic balance and ensure favorable weather. Some cities adapted by diversifying their agriculture, deepening reservoirs, or shifting trade routes. Others could not recover, their plazas and temples left to the encroaching jungle. For the Maya, the environment was both a partner and a judge. When the balance was maintained, it rewarded them with abundance. When disrupted, by human hands, natural cycles, or both, it could hasten decline. In the next and final part of this series, we will bring together all the threads, political, environmental, cultural, and economic, to understand the mystery of the Maya collapse and the enduring legacy they left behind. In the shadowy corridors of time, the story of the Maya reaches its most haunting chapter, the collapse of their great cities between the 8th and 10th centuries. Many of the thriving urban centers of the southern lowlands, places like Tikal, Palenque, and Calakmul, fell silent. Temples stood deserted, plazas emptied, and the jungle began to reclaim stone and story alike. Yet, the Maya people themselves did not vanish. Their civilization transformed, shifting to new centers and adapting to new realities. Historians and archaeologists have long sought to unravel this mystery. The evidence suggests there was no single cause, but rather a convergence of pressures, environmental, political, social, and economic, that together overwhelmed the resilience of even the most powerful kingdoms. Climate stress played a critical role. Prolonged droughts reduced harvests, leading to famine. Food shortages undermined the authority of rulers, whose divine mandate included ensuring cosmic harmony and agricultural abundance. Political fragmentation intensified the crisis. As cities vied for dominance, warfare became more frequent and destructive. Resources that might have been used to adapt to environmental changes were instead consumed by military campaigns and the rebuilding of damaged infrastructure. Population pressure added another layer of difficulty. As cities grew, so did the demand for food, water, and land. Over-farming led to soil exhaustion, while deforestation altered local climates and reduced biodiversity. Economic disruptions further weakened the system. Trade routes became unsafe or unprofitable as alliances shifted and warfare spread. Prestige goods like jade and cacao, once symbols of stability, lost some of their power to unify. Cultural and spiritual factors may also have influenced the decline. The people believed their rulers had lost favor with the gods, rebellions or desertions could follow. Faith in the existing political religious order might have eroded. encouraging communities to seek new leadership or relocate entirely. The collapse was uneven. While the southern lowland cities declined, other regions, such as the northern, continued to flourish for centuries. Cities like and later rose to prominence, blending Maya traditions with influences from other Mesoamerican cultures. Today, the descendants of the ancient Maya still live throughout Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. They speak dozens of Maya languages, practice traditional crafts, and maintain cultural practices that have survived centuries of change. The collapse of the classic Maya cities was not the end. It was a transformation, a shifting of centers, and a reimagining of what it meant to be Maya. The ruins that stand in the jungle today are not merely remnants of loss. They are monuments to ingenuity, endurance, and the capacity to adapt. As we walk among them, we are reminded that civilizations, like all living things, are part of a cycle of growth, change, and renewal. The Maya story is not one of disappearance, but of resilience, a quiet testament to a people who, though their cities fell, never truly vanished. And so, dear listener, we have reached the end of our quiet journey through the rise, glory, and transformation of the Maya civilization. We have walked their sacred plazas, watched their great ball games, and listened to the voices carved into stone. Though centuries have passed, their story still lives, in the ruins embraced by the jungle, in the traditions kept alive by their descendants, and in the lessons they leave for us about balance, resilience, and change. If tonight's story has brought you peace, curiosity, or a gentle sense of wonder, I invite you to stay with us. There are many more journeys waiting, stories from across history, told in the soft, unhurried rhythm that carries you into restful dreams. Before you drift away, share in the comments, what moment in the Maya story touched you most? Was it their dazzling art, their mastery of the stars, or the mystery of their city's silence? If you enjoyed this time together, subscribe to Sleepy Story Series so you never miss another journey. Like this video so more dreamers can find their way here. Click the bell to travel with us through history, one peaceful story at a time. May your night be calm, your dreams rich with ancient wonders, and your heart light until we meet again.